happy that the co-founder, and CTO of InfoWeapons, Lawrence Hughes, is with us, who will share his experience in building a startup business. And as you notice from his profile, he has a lot of experience in this area, in doing it abroad and now also doing it in the Philippines, and working as well with Filipino entrepreneurs and Filipino employees in building up his business. So if you have any questions during the webinar session, just type them directly at the questions box or just raise your hand and we will unmute your microphone so you can directly ask your question. You don't have to wait until the end of the presentation just to give your concerns, so that we can make this presentation discussion as interactive as possible as well. And at the end also, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview, a quick overview about the Startup 100 project for those of you who will be interested. And we hope that we will be able to continue the dialogue. We have tapped a lot of our club members, especially those who have been running their own businesses for quite some time now, to participate in this program, because it is our intent to encourage more entrepreneurs to put up their own internet projects, mobile projects, and beyond just being a service provider. And we hope that as we aim to help 100 startup entrepreneurs next year, we will be able to contribute to the growth of e-commerce in the Philippines. So let me now introduce you to our speaker, and who will also give more information about himself as he delivers his talk. So welcome Lawrence Hughes. Hi Lawrence. Let me unmute Lawrence just to make sure. Okay, hi Lawrence.
Hello, okay, I'm unmuted now, good.
Okay.
All right,
welcome. Lawrence, welcome, and let's start with the presentation.
Okay, welcome to the webinar here. I'm very pleased to be presenting to you. I've been working with Filipinos for quite some time. I came here the first time about 1993. I've been married to my wife for 18 years now, who's Filipina from Negros Oriental. And I've actually been running a company here since 2004 officially. And all of my employees are Filipino. And so this is not something where we're trying to, you know, basically do a U.S. operation that happens to be in the Philippines. This is very much a Filipino company, and they have risen to world-class expertise and prominence, and I'm very, very proud of them. So I'm giving tonight a talk on basically how I got here, what led up to this, to help people who are also interested in being entrepreneurs to see what it's like. I'm going to be giving both the painful and the pleasurable aspects of it, and so you'll get a good chance to see what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. Okay, and let's see. There we go. Okay, first off, my name is Lawrence Hughes. I'm 60 years old now. I was born in the U.S., traveled widely. I've been all over Eastern and Western Europe, Asia, and so on. I've been to well over 30 countries so far, and have actually lived in Hong Kong for 2 years and the Philippines now since about 2002 most of the time. My undergraduate degree was in pure math with a minor in physics, and I like to think of a university as being like a gym for the mind. So I ignored the 5-pound weights, the easy courses, and so I went straight for the big barbells. Things like math and physics are the really heavy-duty courses. Interestingly enough, though, my job as a student assistant to make some money while I was there at the University Computing Center was actually far more valuable to me later than all of my formal classes combined. I really haven't used pure math very much in my career. It was a great preparation, though. The effort I had to go through and what I mastered in terms of learning in that process was invaluable. I'm a member of MEMSA based on a graduate record exam score, which was high enough to get into almost any graduate program, but I decided against it. to me it was just a waste of time. I needed to get on with my real education. I've worked for numerous IT companies over the years, learning everything I could from each. That's a real key. Everywhere you work, try to learn everything you can about how their business works, how that industry works, ask questions and so on. Be a sponge. I've traveled extensively, both professionally and for pleasure. I founded and run 4 ventures so far. The score, 2 very painful learning experiences, 1 major success. I'm working on my 2nd success now. I'll let you know how that goes as things proceed. I'm married, have a Filipino wife, 3 kids, all born in the Philippines. In fact, all in Cebu, Doc, for those of you in Cebu. They're all bright. One clearly is headed towards being an entrepreneur, and the second one is headed that direction, I believe. I saw the inevitable economic and political problems beginning to surface in the U.S., so starting some 20 years ago, I created a 20-year-plus escape plan, which I triggered back in November 2008. If you're curious as to why I left, you might want to go spend some time on Mises.org. That's how economics really works there. As far as my accomplishments, I've written 3 books previously. One way back in 1976 on system programming under CPM80. Those are in the days of 8-bit micros. So I've been doing this for quite a while. The second one was written in preparation for launching my 3rd venture. I spent a year researching internet email, and this is basically my notes from that. And so it's called Internet Email, Protocol Standards and Implementation, published in 1998. The 3rd book has never actually been printed. It was released under Creative Commons as a PDF, and it's available from the website www.secondinternet.org. You're more than welcome to get a copy and read it. It's all about the second internet. We're in the closing days of the first internet based on IPv4. The second internet based on IPv6 is growing exponentially now alongside its older sibling, and this is where all the excitement is now, all the investment, all the opportunities, and so on. So if you want to learn what's coming for the future of the internet, this book explains it. Somehow I've wound up being one of the leading authorities in the world on this subject. I even sit on a panel that oversees the rollout of IPv6 in India. I advise the Malaysian government on it. I've advised the Philippine government on it, and so on. So this book hopefully will give you an idea of what's going on in terms of the future of the internet. Okay, now in terms of accomplishments, I've written many magazine articles, starting with an article in Dr. Dobbs Journal in 1976 on RS-232 interfacing that amazingly is still circulating around the internet. I've spoken at many conferences all over the world, Beijing, Seoul, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, etc., and created many major software projects. Most recently, I'm working on a next generation dual stack, both IPv4 and IPv6 network management system. I've created and taught certification courses in cryptography and PKI for VeriSign, the leading company in PKI. Founded open source and security lab at DOST Region 7 in Cebu. Something like 140 people have been through there and learned quite a bit about open source. Very successful recruiting venture for me too. That's where we found a lot of our good people that are working at InfoWeapons now. I'm also an IPv6 Forum Gold Certified Engineering Trainer and created about a 700-slide massive course in IPv6 that I presented to like the senior engineers at Singtel, people down in Malaysia, people in the Middle East, and so on. I've created and run one of the 7 IPv6 Ready testing centers in the world, peer to ones in Tokyo and Seoul and Beijing and so on. One of the things I've done recently is created a site called v6address.com that you might want to go to. It has all kinds of ways for people to test their IPv6 and learn about it, figure out how to set up like an IPv6 email server and so on. Last year we were the winner of the Asia CEO competition in the top technical innovation team category. So I was very proud of my guys for coming in top in that. There was a lot of competition for that, and my guys really did stand out at the national level, and in fact, like I said, we actually are very well known on a international level as well. No. Basically, my first experience was called Mycroft Labs. This was about 9 years after I graduated from college. I graduated in '73. So this venture ran from '82 to '87. The primary product was something called MITE. It was an intelligent terminal emulator. So it was something that allowed you to turn your personal computer into a terminal and dial out over a modem, connect to online sites like the Source and CompuServe and so on at the time, or connect directly to another computer and exchange files. This was kind of like primordial internet. This is before most people even knew about the internet, even though it was out there. But this was how most of the people were communicating with personal computers. There were no ISPs at the time, and the baud rates were relatively slow, like 300 to 1200, so it wouldn't have been very good for accessing the internet anyway. Basically, we sold about 250,000 copies of the software I created worldwide, but we never really became profitable. I was based in Tallahassee, which is the capital of Florida. Unfortunately, that place has a very high percentage of the population working for the public sector. There's almost no private sector in that town, so there was no infrastructure to support private sector companies. This was a real big problem. So the banks, the PR firms, the lawyers, and so on had no idea how to work with this crazy private sector startup. Did it with zero funding. From the very beginning, I depended on sales to cover expenses. That's called bootstrapping, and it's really the hard way to do things. But I had no idea where to get funding and no ability to do it, so this was the only option. Had no protection of intellectual property, either legal or technical. We went from 0 to 140 competitors over 5 years, and the margins basically just totally evaporated. One company actually stole the design outright and had better marketing and located in a better location, which was Atlanta, and they outsold me about 10 to 1 with my own software. Many retail computer stores and clubs gave away hundreds of copies of our software for free. A lot of the computer stores never paid for the product they ordered, and so on. So there were a lot of business problems, and especially protection of intellectual property issues that caused problems. When IBM and MS-DOS came into the market, it was highly disruptive. Many of the companies that had been established back in the CPM days did not survive the transition. We did, but barely. We even created a Macintosh version. We had the first Macintosh COM software way back when, and that was a total disaster. Virtually every copy of that ever got out was a stolen one. Macintosh owners don't seem to like to pay for software or something. I ended up with about $90,000 US in debt from loans that I had to personally guarantee or wouldn't have gotten them. So the lessons I learned on was to concentrate on my strong suit, technology, rather than try to be the CEO, partner with people who are equally strong in management, finance, and so on, try to anticipate sea changes and cope with them when they happen and recognize that one has happened, locate where there is private sector support infrastructure, and make sure you use it. So those are some of the lessons I learned from the first time. And here on the next slide are some mementos of those days. There's not much left. Amazingly, I found these online. There's a couple of data sheets from the MITE communication software and another program I created that allowed you to read all kinds of different disk formats, and a copy of the manual from where K-Pro Computers bundled our software for many years. Okay, learning experience number 2 was basically an outgrowth of the first one. I had an opportunity as I was shutting down the first one. Somebody came to me and said, what I really need is a secure version of this. So from 87 to 88, I basically ran yet another venture called MICA LP. This one was based in Atlanta, which was a good improvement. This time I concentrated on being CTO and had other people worry about the other aspects of it. Basically, somebody had come to me and said, I've got a contract with the IRS to supply them with secure communication software. And so looked like a good opportunity, and my share of the profit on the first sale alone was going to be about $2.5 million. So we got some funding together, about $800,000, and we created the product. The IRS signed off on it, said this is exactly what we need, it's perfect. They had been sending sensitive financial data on Fortune 500 companies over the phone in plain text. This solved that problem. Unfortunately, Congress didn't seem to see the benefit to it, so they never funded the project, and so the deal fell through. Before we went out of business, we actually tried to market directly. We scraped up $25,000 for an ad in PC Magazine, and we got about 3,000 responses, virtually all from Europe. The National Security Agency in the U.S., who oversees security issues, came back and says, I'm sorry, the security is too strong in this. You cannot export it out of the U.S. for any reason. So they basically blocked us out from the one market that we had. So at that point, that company did, in fact, fail. Basically, one of the results of that is I wound up having to eat a personal bankruptcy, which affected my credit for about 10 years. So basically, being an entrepreneur sometimes has some really deep valleys in it. It's not all fun. So be aware that you're gambling and making some very big, risky ventures, and sometimes those risks don't come through. And so be prepared when that happens. The lessons here: never depend on sales to one customer, especially if that customer happens to be the government. Don't develop secure software in the U.S. If you develop it outside of the U.S., they have no control over who you can sell it to. Everything we've developed at InfoWeapons has been developed in the Philippines, so we can export to anyone with no controls, even if it has strong cryptography in it. Also, don't let the investors force a bad team member on you. We wound up basically with a president who was completely incompetent. The investors insisted we take him, and he essentially squandered most of the investment and caused nothing but problems the whole time. So basically, rather than take a bad team member, walk away from an investment before you do. Okay, there's almost nothing left from that venture because it only ran for 1 year, and we basically didn't really do much direct marketing. But here on the next slide is a couple of examples of some of the stuff that was generated from it. This is about all I could find on the internet when I was making these slides. Now, in the interim, basically after this shutdown, before I was able to do anything else, I basically had to go back and work for a living for a while. Wound up working 5 years at a company called Intergraph that made CAD systems, mastered the Unix operating system and software development on Unix. I worked for a West Coast startup called software.com for 1 year, working on email servers. Worked for a company called Intercom. It was a system integrator, and learned everything there was to know about Windows NT and so on. Eventually, I moved to a company called Secure IT, firewall vendor and white hat hacker, and I was a software developer there. 4 months after I joined it, they were bought by a company called VeriSign, who needed someone to create PKI training. They had a lot of people who had created firewall training, and they thought they could do PKI. It turns out they couldn't, so I did it. I was the only one there with crypto background from the IRS project. And so that worked out extremely well. I wound up running around the world for 2 years for VeriSign, learned crypto and PKI from literally the top people in the field, and more importantly, I got some really juicy incentive stock options, and over a period of about 18 months made about $3 million from them. But this was during the peak of the IT bubble. And fortunately, I got out and sold my stock before the bubble burst, and so I managed to keep most of that. Unfortunately, the IRS took about half of it in taxes. But what was left, I basically, rather than going out and buying, Ferraris and big house and things like that, I invested most of it in my third venture, which turned out to be a really good idea. So the lessons there: get a job in the leading company in your chosen area, learn from the top people in the field, be willing to and able to reinvent yourself as needed to survive. Now, on the next slide, there's a few kind of mementos of the different companies I work for, some logos and pictures of the headquarters and things like that. Some of you probably have heard of VeriSign, probably not the others. But basically, that's kind of some mementos of some of the things I did there in the interim. Well, basically, while I was at Secure IT, the founder of that company and my boss, Jay Chaudhry, had sold Secure IT to VeriSign for $81 million in stock. It cost him $2 million to start up the company, and 18 months later, he sold it for $81 million in stock. Well, basically, he did very well from that. The stock went up enormously after that. But I essentially approached him and said, well, now that we're both out of VeriSign, how would you like to do an email security company? He says, okay, sounds good. So we launched a company called CipherTrust. Again, I concentrated on being CTO and this time junior investor. Jay was the CEO and senior investor. And he was much more competent and skilled at being a CEO than the guy at the second venture. And in fact, he was brilliant at it. I learned an awful lot looking over his shoulder during the years we were working together. CipherTrust was launched in 2000 with about $3 million invested between Jay and myself. In 2004, we got a venture capital placement of $42 million. In 2006, we sold out for $273 million. That's a pretty good exit by any measure. Okay, but basically the lessons here is to partner with the best people you can find again, and this time I found some really, really good ones. Identify a key problem, in this case email security and spam, and solve it better than anyone else. Hold on to your investments if they look good, even if you wind up leaving the company. Delay taking outside investment as long as possible, otherwise the VCs are going to get all the goodies. Defer gratification. Everyone flies coach. Nobody flies first class. Even Jay Chaudhry, as rich as he was, I never saw him fly first class. Everywhere we went together, we always flew coach. And give good ISOs, incentive stock options, to your people. This is a very powerful rocket fuel. This is what Silicon Valley is based on. Before Silicon Valley, only the top maybe half dozen people at a large company got stock options or incentive stock options and made an enormous amount of money off of them. And Silicon Valley introduced the idea of universal incentive stock options. Everybody in the company got some based on what their salary was. People who invested got more, but basically everybody got some. So basically, the one way to look at it is you can have 100% of a little 12-inch diameter pizza, or you can have 90% of a 5-foot diameter pizza. Which one sounds better? Obviously, the bigger pizza is preferable. Now, on the next page here, we've got some mementos of CipherTrust days. We have a copy of the appliance box that we shipped out. There's our logo, complete with the I Trust CipherTrust. The I Trust is kind of subliminal there. If you look at it, you can see what I'm talking about. But basically, that was a real experience, and I learned a great deal during those years working with some really, really good people, and also mastered how to create appliances and so on. Now, the second success in the making, InfoWeapons, it's still not a complete success, but I've put quite a bit of money into it already over the last 7 years. A very large chunk of what I made out of the CipherTrust sale, and it's already roughly tripled in value. So it's definitely a success, but it's nowhere near far enough along to sell off to one of the big guys. So my goal over the next couple of years is to multiply that stock value by a factor of 10 or so, and then sell out to one of the big guys for another big chunk of money. So this is the way you grow big companies, a little bit at a time, and so on. But basically, at CipherTrust, I wanted to create additional products beyond the one that they sold, but nobody else there was interested. My researchers had uncovered a major unaddressed market opportunity, which was IPv6, the next generation internet. In 2004, we officially launched InfoWeapons. You can go to our website and see details about it. Once again, I partnered with a very experienced management type, Luis Gopez. He was in charge of the VeriSign affiliate for the Philippine branch, and he was a senior person at PLDT. Amazingly, I was able to convince him to leave a really secure, well-paid position to join this crazy startup guy, and we've been working together ever since, and he's basically fulfilling the same role that Jay Chaudhry did at CipherTrust. I worry about the technology, he worries about basically everything else. But this time, though, instead of being a junior investor, I'm not only the senior investor, I'm the only investor. Louis fortunately knows telcos very well, and so he's helping make sales to big telcos around the region. We've just closed one for about $1.25 million US to Telecom Malaysia. We also have sold very big ones to people in the Middle East and quite a bit to Singtel down in Singapore. So basically, because I did fairly well with the sale of CyberTrust, I'm still funding InfoWeapons out of my pocket with the proceeds from that. The taxes on CyberTrust, instead of being 50% like they were at VeriSign, were all long-term capital gains, which are taxed at 15%. So I got to hold on to a lot more of the larger income than I did at VeriSign. So one of the things I learned was make all your earnings in long-term capital gains. At least that's the rule in the U.S. So anyway, we have actually even created a joint venture now down in Malaysia called Dual Stack Networks, Sudin Berhad, and we joined with a reseller down there, and we're now actually doing pretty well in both Malaysia and Singapore with that venture. Okay, here are some examples of some of the stuff we're doing at InfoWeapons. One of the pictures here you might enjoy, that's the MIN in IPv6. Union Bank was proud to have us as a customer, and so they featured us in their annual report one year. And they did a photo shoot of us, and the idea was to do a Men in Black type thing. So that's me on the left, and that's Lewis on the right. And we're basically the Men in IPv6 instead of the Men in Black. As you can see, we're still doing appliances over on the right, and there's the logo for both InfoWeapons. The ::1 there is the first IPv6 address. So when you start learning IPv6, that's one of the first things you learn. It's the loopback address of an IPv6. And in dual stack networks, that icon is actually a dual stack router. That's a router that does both IPv4 and IPv6. So a lot of people recognize that immediately. Now, InfoWeapons is still ongoing. It's been by far my biggest risk to date. IPv6 is the biggest thing to ever hit IT. For details, again, you can go look at my Second Internet book. You can find secondinternet.org, or you can just search Google and it will pop up. But basically, it's going to affect virtually everything. We're literally ripping up one layer of the Internet worldwide and replacing it with 30-year more recent technology. This is going to impact just about everything. All telephony is just one small subset of the Second Internet. All broadcast entertainment is collapsing into it. So much, much larger systems are collapsing into the Second Internet than ever collapsed into the first. The first was very good for replacing mail with email and creating the web. Those are small-scale things compared to what you're going to see in the Second Internet. And IPv6 is underneath all of it, and it's going to make all of it possible. So CyberTrust took about 3 years to begin covering expenses, and then it started making money. The first year it made money, it made about $3 million, then 11 million, then 30 million, then 50 million. We're basically just now beginning to break even and make some good money. So for almost 7 years, I've been pumping money in with nothing to show for it. So sometimes you have to have a very long startup period. This one's unusually long, but count on being able to support yourself and cover all your expenses for some time before money starts coming in. Money's not going to come in the first day, so you need to be prepared for that. Now, basically, no VC has been willing to invest. When we present to them, they say, yeah, IPv6 is going to be gigantic, but we have no idea of guessing when, so no money for you. Well, many organizations have delayed deploying IPv6 until the last possible minute. That minute happened on April 15th, 2011 for half of the world. That's when Asia Pacific ran out of IPv4 addresses. And so ever since then, the interest in IPv6 has been really surging, at least in Asia. So we were prepared for that. A lot of other companies were caught flat-footed, and you know, when all the big companies started demanding IPv6, they'd say, IPv what? We were already well established and known worldwide for being IPv6 experts, and so we're in a very enviable position right now. That's called positioning, to basically do all the investment necessary and hard work to be ready when that big wave hits. The fun is being able to predict that there's going to be a really big wave. In this case, it was pretty obvious to me. Our most likely exit will be an acquisition by one of the major players, like a Cisco or someone like that. Basically, the big players no longer actually innovate. It's too risky to do that. What they do is they let the little guys like me, the startups, fight it out, and then they basically buy the winner. We intend to be that winner in the IPv6 space. Already my market cap, like I said, is about 3 times my investment. My goal is to now multiply that by about 10 times more. Now, a few questions about entrepreneurship to help you understand where you might fit in and whether you're an entrepreneur or not. First off, basically, entrepreneurs are self-starters. You probably learn to learn on your own, and you require no further spoon-feeding. You might have completed a 4-year college degree, but probably not more. Many of the most successful entrepreneurs were college dropouts, including ones like the guy who founded Hayes Modems, Dennis Hayes. He's a personal friend of mine. You know, a lot of the entrepreneurs never went on for advanced degrees. Academic degrees don't impress you. Further college only slows down your continual learning process. I've heard that over and over again from entrepreneurs. You're independent. You depend on no one, especially the government. Your government is your primary obstacle to success. Likely others depend on you instead. You're a risk taker. You're willing to take completely outrageous but calculated risk in return for outrageous potential rewards. Not real rewards, but potential ones. If you fall off that horse, you need to get right back up on it. You can't let a setback throw you. You've got to stick at it. You've got to be willing to go after it no matter what happens. You're a born leader. Many are willing to follow you without question because of your track record, your character, your integrity, insight, vision, and so on. You're probably a skeptic. You question all assumptions, especially something called common knowledge, which is almost always wrong. You value integrity. You understand that your word is a primary asset, one of your most important. It's easily damaged by unethical behavior and is very difficult to repair once that's happened. Employees, partners, and customers have to know that they can rely on what you say. People will remember one failure of integrity and forget hundreds of successes. One of the most important things is that you see most problems as currently unexploited business opportunities. So basically, that's the kind of the standard view of an entrepreneur. When he sees a problem, he thinks, how can I do this better and how can I make money out of it? Now, what courses should I take in college? College is a good place to hone your skills in learning. It almost doesn't matter what you learn, so long as it's something really, really hard, like math and physics in my case. You probably will never use it, most of it later. In a gym, the goal is not to raise the barbell a few feet. It's to gain the strength from having done so over and over again. College is to build your mind. Don't waste that time and money, or even worse, damage your brain with too much partying or drinking beer. There's plenty of time for that later. You might be able to learn a few technical skills, but the reality is most of what they're teaching is already obsolete or completely off base. By the time you graduate, it'll be ancient history. Do learn to write very well and to read critically. Take courses in creative and technical writing if available. Learn to communicate really, really well. That's one of your most important skills you can learn in college. College is also a great place to find similar-minded, bright, capable people, drop out together, and go start a company. Many entrepreneur teams have met each other in college. Virtually all of the big guys in the U.S., that's where their teams met. Most of them are dropouts, too. Most business courses prepare you for middle management in a giant corporation. That's not where the fun is, and it's not where the big money is. There's some money there, but the big money is in being an entrepreneur and starting something up from scratch. Otherwise, pretty much forget academia. The academics don't really have a clue when it comes to startups. If they did, they wouldn't be satisfied with a professor's wages. They'd be out there doing a startup. Once you leave college or drop out, your real education can actually begin. Now, how do I prepare to be an entrepreneur? Well, read lots and lots of books. Read all the relevant trade magazines. Read books on corporate finance and how venture capitalists actually do things. They're more correctly called vulture capitalists, by the way. Attend trade shows and conferences in your area of expertise. They're happening all the time, and many of them are free to attend. Go to them. Master your chosen technology. Become a world-class expert and leader in it. Get published often. Get a job in the leading company if you're filled, if you can, or at least a leading company. Observe everything. Learn how the company works. Read quarterly reports. Understand the technology in the market. Learn from the best people in that company you can locate. Make yourself totally irreplaceable. They should be ready to fire the CEO of the company before they fire you because you're so irreplaceable. Don't burn bridges ever. Don't dump on people that work for you. You may wind up working for them someday. Work for a real startup. This is one of the hardest things to do. A lot of people think working for a startup is risky. It is. But the risk of the employees is tiny compared with that of the company founders. Again, ask questions, not just on the technology, but on, why did you make that decision? Why are we doing this instead of that? How did we get this customer, and so on. Be a good little sponge and absorb everything you can. You're later going to have to do this stuff yourself, so spend some time now learning. Now, what should I watch out for? You should have enough savings to cover your costs and anyone dependent on you, like a wife, kids, cats, parents, worthless brother-in-laws, and so on. The more dependents you have, the worse the pressure will be on you, and the less risk you'll be able to take. It may be a long, lonely time before you can pay yourself a salary, and you may have to pay salaries of others for quite some time before your startup can cover its own cost and you actually take some money out of it. It's like having a kid, but even more expensive. Keep expenses to an absolute minimum everywhere possible. You don't need a fancy office, maybe no office at all in some cases. You might be able to work out of your home. You don't need classy office furniture. One good point on getting software is to get a Microsoft Partner Package. For a couple of $100, you get about $20,000 worth of great software, like multiple copies of Windows 7 in Office, a copy of Windows Server, Exchange Server, all kinds of stuff. Use open source software wherever possible, especially FreeBSD and Linux. You should probably drive a used car. Hire only A players. Anybody below the A level doesn't belong in a startup. Outsource all your legal and accounting services. Don't try to do those sorts of things yourself. A lot of people wind up wasting a lot of time and effort keeping track of every last penny when it's really not that expensive to get somebody to do that for you. Now, the magic of private stock. Make your business a corporation instead of a sole proprietorship or a partnership, and issue stock. This is how you keep track of who owns what percentage. Get a lawyer or business expert to help you manage it and parcel it out to employees, investors, and so on. Private stock is like being able to print your own money. Some professionals will accept stock, at least in partial payment for services, if your venture looks really promising. You can make up the differences in the salaries you can pay and what an established company can pay with stock options. It's a very powerful thing once you learn how to use it. Universal incentive stock options are the secret that makes Silicon Valley so productive. Learn about them. With ISOs, there's no rank and file versus management or versus owners. You're all owners and stand to sink or swim together. Again, would you rather have 100% of a 10-inch pizza or 90% of a 100-inch pizza? I've seen it from both sides now, earning them at VeriSign and giving them at CipherTrust and InfoWeapons. Both sides are great. It's capitalism at its best. Okay, now a few good resources here to look at. These are some books you can get from Amazon. Some of them you might even be able to find and download. You can certainly get them on a Kindle. One is High Tech Startup by John Nesham. It's priceless. It contains actual VC tables from Sequoia Capital for about 30 firms you've heard of, including Apple and HP and a lot of others. It also contains detailed steps you should go through before opening the doors on your venture. There's about 28 steps he identified that all these big guys went through. And we followed that at CipherTrust, and by God, it paid off big time. His other book is The Power of Unfair Advantage. A venture capitalist would love to go to a wrestling match between a 300-pound sumo wrestler and a 10-year-old kid. They would cheer for the sumo wrestler. They look for totally unfair advantages in the companies they fund. Learn how to build that. Term sheets and valuations is dry as dust, but it's very valuable. It's written by and for venture capitalists. It's how to actually negotiate a term sheet with one. If you ever find yourself dealing with a venture capitalist, you better have this book to understand what's going on there. Venture capital best practices is another good one. Deal terms gets into the really nitty-gritty detail. These are all from a place called Aspiratory Press. The books are available from Amazon, and they're priceless. As far as marketing, Crossing the Chasm and Inside the Tornado by Jeffrey Moore. Those are the high-tech marketing Bibles of Silicon Valley. Read through them, and you'll understand a lot about how you actually grow your company and how you make your product attractive. Angel Capital is another good book. basically you're probably not ready for VCs until you're pretty far along. They're not interested unless they can place maybe $20 to $100 million with you or something like that. How do you get up to that point? Well, there's angel investors. This book explains how they work, and they're great to go from ground zero up to the level a VC might be interested in you. And there are angel investors around the Philippines. This book basically explains how to find them, how to work with them, how to come up with company valuations, and so on. Very, very good book. A few more additional resources. I recommend you join the one social networking service I find absolutely useful. That's LinkedIn. If you're not already in it, go join it. Send me a join request, and I'll be happy to join you to my network. I've got a couple of hundred of some of the top people in the IT field that I interact with. Almost everybody who's anybody in IPv6 is linked into me. Get a Kindle ebook reader. That's my favorite toy. You can at least get a Kindle account, even if you can't afford the reader, and you can buy books and download them and read them on your PC. Most books you can download in 4 to 6 different places, different readers, or on your PC, on your phone, etc., with one license. If you're not in the U.S., this saves tons of shipping and time delay getting books. I hate to have to pay as much for the shipping as I did for the book to get something over here in the Philippines. Kindle books are also always cheaper than the print books, and they're never out of stock, of course. They just run off another digital copy for you. If you get a reader, you can carry your entire library around with you on planes and restaurants and so on. I have mine with me all the time. If cost is a really big concern, the small unit works fine at about $180 or $130 if you buy the one with ads. If you can afford it for a little under $400, the Kindle DX is the Papa Bear of Kindles. It's really, really good. Be sure to get the units with the international 3G in addition to Wi-Fi. Most of the books I listed there are available in Kindle form. It's one of the most useful tools you'll ever get as an entrepreneur. Get the best notebook computer you can afford. Forget tablets. Those are great for playing things like Angry Birds. They're not so good for doing work. The Kindle is actually better for reading books than most of the tablets are. So get a good notebook and a Kindle. You can actually get amazing notebooks today for not very much money. You can go ahead and get lots of disk and lots of RAM. Be wary of netbooks. They're really pretty much underpowered. So basically, that ends my talk. I hope you've benefited some from this. I see we managed to hold most of our attendees through this. So I hope you found this useful. Now, let me turn things back over to our organizers here, and let's see if we can organize some questions.
Thank you very much, Lauren. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us in this webinar session. And again, later on, after your question and answer, after the question and answer portion, we're also going to briefly talk about the Startup 100 project. So for now, if you have questions for Lawrence, please use your questions box or press the raise your hand button so we can unmute your microphone and listen to your question. Or if you're the shy type, just type your questions directly and we'll be more than happy to ask them. Rowan asked if he can get a copy of the presentation. Yes, tomorrow we will be uploading the video, this video of Lauren's presentation, and I'll be posting as well a handout copy of his presentation. Again, everyone, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to post your questions there and I will ask them. So maybe while waiting for that question, maybe I can ask you, Lawrence, do you really need a novel idea, or is it just a smart execution and the right team that matters in having a startup?
Well, you definitely have to have really good execution, and you've got to have an incredible team. Those are by far the most important things. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody's got great ideas. That gets you about 2% of the way towards a viable company. You do have to have a good idea, but that's actually the easiest part of the problem to put together. Basically, figuring out how to deal with the risk and building a good team is far more important. There's plenty of ideas out there you can build a company on. But one of the most important things is to find an idea that, as they like to say, the people will eat your dog food. If they're not willing to eat the product you come up with or consume the product and so on, it doesn't matter how good the idea is or whatever. You also want to find one that's not too far ahead of the pack. When I started InfoWeapons in 2004, nobody had ever heard of IPv6. This led to a very long startup period. The IPv4 addresses lasted longer than I expected. But basically, now that they've run out, everybody and his brother wants IPv6. So the idea is important, but it's not by far the most important aspect.
Okay. I'm wondering, Lawrence, have you encountered startups that are family-owned type, and are there stuff to watch out for if the startup is family-owned?
Families are one of the most important and common sources of capital to get started on. Basically, that practice is very common in the Philippines. The family will get together and help launch a company, and everybody gets to work at it and so on. There's nothing wrong with that approach. Get capital anywhere you can, but if at all possible, try to get capital that doesn't have a lot of strings attached to it. Family tends to be very forgiving and very understanding about things, where people that are not related to you might be a little more demanding and less patient. So you can definitely have your family help you with your startup. People also who've been in the U.S., they mortgage their houses to get money to start up. That's not so easy in the Philippines, unfortunately. A lot of the capital here is really kind of in frozen state. If you're interested, there's a book called Mystery of Capital that explains all, the differences in how readily people can get at their capital in a place like the U.S. and how difficult it is here. But there are sources of capital, but family-based businesses are often very, very strong. And family members may be willing to work for you for some startup period at less than somebody not related to you would be. Don't take advantage of them, but if you can get inexpensive help from your kids, take advantage of it, use it. I don't take advantage of it in a bad way.
Lawrence, I'm curious, somebody asked, Raul, what made you decide to locate your company in the Philippines?
That's a really good question. First off, I discovered that if I created secure products in the U.S., they were subject to export controls. But more importantly, I studied economics and realized that things were going downhill very rapidly in the U.S. And so I hatched a 20-year plan, basically an escape plan, and a part of that was launching a company outside of the U.S. The Philippines wound up being a particularly good place to do that. It was right in the middle of all the countries that were going to IPv6. So I was in the right time zone for most of them and only a few hours flight away. Whereas from the U.S., I was 25 hours flight away from most of my customers. The U.S. is also literally 7 years behind Asia in IPv6. So nobody there was at all interested. So it had to be in Asia. Now, because I'd married into the Philippines and I'd been coming here a long time, I saw all these bright guys here that were capable of learning IT, but there was no great companies for them to work for. So I created one. I now have one of the strongest development teams I've ever had, and they're all Filipino. You guys should be proud of them. Filipinos can definitely create world-class products. We're living proof. We've done it. We're outselling Silicon Valley companies with our products. So, and this is all done by Filipinos with inspiration and some advice from me, but they're the ones that did the work. So the Philippines has turned out to actually be a pretty good place to locate this sort of thing. I had a lot of people tell me I could never actually get a Silicon Valley style company going outside of the U.S., let alone in a third world country. And now it's I'm getting to the point where I can tell them, well, yeah, it seems that you can.
Okay. Lawrence, somebody asked, since you're one of our mentors and / investors also in the Startup 100 project, what kind of companies or projects are you looking for? What type of ideas will merit your interest?
Okay, basically any investor needs to stick to things that they know. As an example, I forget his name, but there's a very successful Philippine entrepreneur based in Silicon Valley who started several major companies.
Dado Banatao.
Yeah, Dado Banatao, yeah. He only knows one area really, which is semiconductors and semiconductor fabs and so on. That's what he invests in. I don't know anything about that. If you're interested in semiconductors and so on, building hardware devices down at that level, don't ask me. Go find Datto. I happen to know network appliances, network protocols, and things like that. So that's the areas that if you're interested in, you should come talk to me. You're welcome to pitch things to me, and if it's something I know about, I'll tell you and encourage you, and maybe even try to invest in you at some point. But if it's something I don't have any knowledge of, I'm going to steer clear of it. I might try to point you to somebody who understands that area and is interested in it.
Mm-hmm. We have a question here from Joseph. I think I can answer this directly. Would you give free personal advice to aspiring entrepreneurs? We ask our mentors to help out in giving advice, so that's why we created a LinkedIn group for people. We will be inviting you all to join there, and we will encourage to continue the discussion there, and we will also ask Lawrence from time to time to check it out so that he can give advice for those of you who will be posting questions there. Lawrence, there's another question here.
I've been doing that for years, so I'll be glad to continue doing it.
Yes. There's another question here. What was the business reason why you decided to make Cebu as your base?
Okay. It wasn't so much a business reason, although I really didn't want to try to locate in Manila with it being so overrun and overpopulated and so on. But mostly, my wife is from the Visayas. She's from Negros Oriental. And when we moved here, she says just one rule, not Manila. It has to be somewhere in the Visayas. And Cebu, of course, is the predominant city in that area, so we wound up moving to Cebu. And it's worked out just fine. It's actually evolving as the IT hub of the whole Philippines. There's actually more interesting things going on here than in Manila. Manila was very jealous of our open source startup group in the DOST, and they've tried copying it, but ours did better. So basically, Cebu has turned out to be a pretty good place to locate.
Mm-hmm. There's another question here from Dante. What is the minimum ownership should the founder preserve when a financial investor or VC enters an IT startup business?
Okay, the high-tech startup book goes into that in great detail. I won't try to cover everything that they do, but basically, even in the big companies, by the time the VCs get involved, often the original founders wind up with between 5 and 10% of the stock between all of them, and there might be several founders, whereas the VCs wind up with the lion's share. This is because those companies went for VC too early. At CipherTrust, we waited for 4 years before we even talked with any VCs. Then we did one giant 42 million round, and we didn't even have to give up that much of the company for it. So the longer you can hold out before you start taking investments, the more of your share you'll be able to hold on to. When we finally went public at, or when we finally sold out at CipherTrust, Jay and I still had a remarkable percentage of the stock still in our names. I had over 10% myself, and Jay had quite a bit more. So I wound up, even as the junior partner, I wound up with a higher percentage at exit than most of the big guys had between a whole set of founders. So wait as long as you can to take funds. This may involve, basically breathing vacuum for a few years and living on a shoestring, but it'll pay off in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Lawrence, there's a question here. Is the Philippine infrastructure ready for the IPv6 rollout?
It's becoming ready. I've actually worked with the Philippine government. Arroyo actually issued an executive order just before she left, kind of an 11th hour thing, requiring the government to convert over to IPv6. Unfortunately, the telcos really haven't done much of anything with it. They're just going nowhere. But there are requirements now for all government agencies to deploy IPv6, and that's going to force the telcos to finally adopt it. But basically, the Philippines is not really one of the leaders in this. One of the bright points is one of the schools in Manila, UP Diliman, probably a few people are now cheering, actually rolled it out to 15,000 students. that's one of the largest deployments in all of Asia. And it was kind of a surprise. Nobody knew they were even working on it, and suddenly they, contacted us and says, "Hi, we've got 15,000 people working," and that was really big news. So there are some bright spots here, but really the leaders in this are Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong. They're all well ahead of the Philippines in this. India is also catching up very, very rapidly. Nothing was happening there, and they turned their complete attention to it, and now they're really moving forward rapidly. But by and large, the telcos here are doing almost nothing, I'm afraid to say. So fortunately, you don't have to wait for them. You can tunnel and get IPv6 today, even here in the Philippines. My home and my office have working IPv6, and there's not a single ISP in the country that can give it to me. That's because I bring in tunneled service right through the existing IPv4. You don't have to wait for the local telco to offer it to you. My book explains all the details in that.
Mm-hmm. Lawrence, there's a question here, but I think it's too focused, so I guess we can work together in answering it. How would you describe the liquidity in the local market of buying and selling startups? Do you think you'll be able to answer this, or do you want me to take it on?
The Philippines is not really well suited to that sort of thing, especially a company like ours. People here really are not comfortable with IT companies yet. The Ayalas and people like that are much more interested in real estate and kind of legacy type companies than they are, state-of-the-art companies. If you're really interested in creating a high-tech company and a software company or things like that, you may want to look in the surrounding regions for people that are interested in investing and or acquiring. But one great line I heard is, don't worry about an exit strategy until you've mastered the entrance. Until you've got a real company going, don't even worry about the exit. That'll come in time.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what we're saying is that build the company first and make it work, and then more or less everything will fall into place in the process.
Exactly.
Rather than worry about it too much. Yeah. Also for the group, for the Startup 100 project, we have one of our club members who's based in Singapore right now. His name is Wilson of Pitstop. And basically, we agreed that he will be looking at based on the proposals that we will receive, if he will be able to see at least 3 of them promising, he will help them set up a company in Singapore and invest in them, and also get funding in Singapore. That's the agreement that we had, and we're setting up a meeting also next week to further finalize the details on that matter. Somebody asked here, Lawrence, what would it take to join your team?
You're welcome to come and interview. We don't hire a lot of people, but when somebody really outstanding comes by, we'll sometimes make a position for them. But we have fairly exacting requirements for what we're looking for. It would help if you have experience in network protocol development, know IPv6. If you don't know IPv6, we can teach you. You should at least know IPv4. If you're a C or PHP developer, we might be interested in you. But basically, we don't really have a large sales staff. We mostly do sales through resellers in the surrounding region. It's conceivable there might be some sort of position for you in our branch in Malaysia. We do more sales there. Frankly, there's people much more interested in buying our stuff in the surrounding region than there is in the Philippines. The original goal was to create the technology here and export it to bring hard currency into the Philippines.
Okay. Lawrence, there's another question. What do you think is the most pressing problem that potential users have with IPv6?
Lack of knowledge. Also, security is a real problem. There's a lot of, well, there's some people that know IPv6 now. There's a lot of people that know security. There's almost nobody that knows both. So a lot of people now are very worried about deploying IPv6 because they're afraid they're going to get hacked. And with the level of knowledge they have, they probably will. So that's one of the biggest concerns right now. One of the things I've considered doing is starting up an IPv6 specialty security consulting group that will address those issues. If you're a real security whiz, come to us and learn IPv6 and help us build that group. That's one of the most pressing needs right now.
Mm-hmm. There's a question here on what do you think should the government do to embrace or be prepared for the IPv6 technology, since the private telcos have done nothing on the upgrade from IPv4 to IPv6?
That's a good question. Basically, I'm very reluctant to have the government get involved in anything. Usually, once they get involved in something, there's all kinds of problems. But in particular, they could actually require that all government agencies buy equipment that buy only equipment that has IPv6 support. Right now, that's still not required. I tried to get them to do that in the implemented rules and regulations for the executive order. But basically, this says, okay, we're going to give everybody 2 years to still buy IPv4 stuff. That was a bad idea because if you buy something today that's IPv4 only, it's already obsolete. And so anybody buying equipment now should be buying stuff that does support IPv6. So the government could at least say government agencies can only buy stuff that supports IPv6. Unfortunately, they were unwilling to do that. So that was one of the few things, one of the few constructive things they could have actually done. I'm very reluctant to have them lay down the law to the telcos themselves and say, thou must do IPv6. That's likely to cause problems.
Lawrence, here's another question. I see you emphasize, from Ryan, I see you emphasize the value of self-teaching, but I feel I need a mentor who will have to put me through everything since I have trouble doing so. How do you think I should handle this?
Well, actually, the answer was in the slides. Go work for the best companies you can find. Learn everything you can. Don't jump into starting a company in an area until you've really mastered that area. Basically, learn from working companies. See how they do it. Learn everything you can. Don't just worry about doing your job. Go way outside of your job and ask everything you can. I encourage people in InfoWeapons to do that, and some of them do come. You know, of course, Filipinos are a bit shy, but most of the ones working for me have learned that, you know, I don't bite their head off when they ask something like that. I take time and explain it. So, you know, go work for the best company you can find and learn everything you can from them.
Okay. Let me see some of the reserved questions that we have here. So again, everyone, if you still have questions for Lawrence, please don't hesitate to use our questions box to post it there so that you will be able to, how do you call that, take advantage of this consultation session. And then there's a, how do you tell if it's time to raise an idea to a full-fledged enterprise? And what are the early signs of success?
Okay, basically the idea, like I said, is only a small part of it. If you need to start building a team of people that can work together and you know, build a company. The company is its people. The ideas will come. Basically, you need to worry about creating the company more than having bright ideas. Once you've got a going company, there will be plenty of ideas to pursue.
And then, how would you do things differently in your first business? Should you start all over again?
Boy, first off, I would not have located in a public sector town. I would have located in a private sector town. I wouldn't have tried to be the CEO. That's not what I'm good at. I would have concentrated on being the CTO. I would have tried to find some kind of funding rather than do a bootstrap. The bootstrap really slowed things down, and by the time I got going, people who had gotten outside funding were way ahead of me, and I never caught up. So bootstrapping is by far the long, painful way to do it, and chances are you'll lose out. So there's a lot of things I would have done different from the first time.
Okay, and then we have another question here submitted to us earlier. Let me check. What's the best way to deal with uncertainty and risk?
There's no good way to deal with it. It's going to cause you problems and sleepless nights the entire time you're in business. Risk is something you just have to learn to deal with. One of the ways I deal with it is I have a really nice cat that I love to pet. That helps you deal with stress.
Okay.
Find ways that you can deal with stress, whatever it takes. It's different for everybody. You know, it might be going and laying on the beach and watching the sunset for you. But you have to find ways to deal with stress and, you know, the effects of having too much risk, because there is going to be a great deal of risk and stress in any startup situation. You're going to have to meet payrolls and all kinds of things that are just not very forgiving. And so the level of stress is among the highest anywhere. So find ways to deal with it. I found lots of ways myself. Watching animes is another way. When my stress level goes too high, I just go watch a few animes, and pretty soon I'm feeling good again. So
okay,
it varies for everybody.
That's your secret. That's your secret. Cat anime.
Yes, those are things that work for me. So I don't know if they'll work for you, but they work great for me.
And probably sunset also.
Yes.
Watching the sunset. All right. Do you need technical computer programming skills to become an online entrepreneur?
If you're going to be the developer, yes. But developers are easy to find. There's lots of those. And, you know, basically you need to know organizational skills, management skills, finance, investing, understanding the ideas, and so on. The actual implementation of it is by far the easy part. So you don't necessarily, if you're going to be the entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have to have technical skills yourself. Now, in my case, since I concentrate on being the CTO, I've got to have really intense technical skills so that I can project what the market's going to be and so on. But I really haven't done much of the development at InfoWeapons. That's been done by our developers. They're very, very good at it. I'm beginning to do some now because I'm creating some really out-of-the-box breakthrough type technology, and it's easier to do it than to explain to them how to do it. But for the most part, you can become a very successful entrepreneur, even in the IT field, without ever writing a single line of code yourself. It would help if you understand the concepts immensely, but you don't necessarily have to become a programmer yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Joseph was asking if you watch because you mentioned anime, like what anime you watch, like do you watch Naruto, or do you have any preferred anime?
I'm ashamed to say how many copies of animes I've got here, but basically I like ones like Clannad and so on. The more common ones like Naruto don't really do much for me, but there are some. If somebody would like to have a whole evening on going over anime sometime, be delighted to talk about that. It's one of my favorite subjects, but not particularly related to tonight's topic, I'm afraid.
Okay. What do you think will be the tipping point for the IPv4 to IPv6?
The tipping point happens when a particular region runs out of IPv4 addresses. That tipping point happened April 15th, 2011 for Asia Pacific. APNIC ceased normal allocation of IPv4 addresses then. Suddenly everybody couldn't have enough IPv6 in this part of the world. So things really took off, and our customers got much more interested in what we were doing and our products and so on when that happened. Over the next couple of years, that moment is going to happen in other regions around the world. In Europe, it's probably going to happen right around, maybe 2-3 months from now. So that's RIPE, R-I-P-E. That's the EU internet. In the U.S., it'll probably be somewhere in mid-2013 to the end of 2013. They're not consuming addresses anywhere near as fast as Asia. So it'll be several years before the U.S. finally runs out of addresses and then gets interested. Literally, North America is dead last in this race. and is probably going to impact them for the rest of the 21st century. There's a great article described in my book. It's written by OECD, talking about the economic impact of IPv6. Basically, the countries and regions that master it first are going to own the internet and IT in the 21st century. The ones that come to it last are going to be the laggards. They're going to lose out. So this is a defining technology, and it's underneath essentially everything that we're going to be doing in the 21st century. It's the deep infrastructure of the 21st century. So basically the tipping points are happening at different times around the world. It's already happened in Asia Pacific. If you're taking networking in school right now and they're teaching IPv4, you're already obsolete before you even graduate. Get them to teach you IPv6. It's the future.
Okay. Somebody asked, can they borrow your developers on their free time?
No, they have no free time. We keep them pretty busy. Basically, by the time they go home, they're ready to pet a cat or something. They don't want to do any more development.
All right.
We work them to the bone. Okay.
Okay. On your book, Second Internet, what's the 3 things you would learn from it? More or less, just to have an idea, because the guy was in one of our participants, SAR, is interested in downloading it. But what are the most important, I guess, the top 3 things that you can learn from the ebook?
Well, you can learn the timing, which a lot of people don't really understand. There's a lot in there about what's happening when. There's a lot in there about what we're going to be able to do in the second internet that wasn't possible in the first, some of the new things that it's enabling, some of the impact that it's going to have on our lives. If you think the first internet was touched everything you did, you haven't even begun to see what the second internet is going to do. The second internet is going to be in literally everything. Virtually everything technological that you touch is going to be connected to it. Your MP3 player is going to have end-to-end connectivity with MP3 players all over the world. You're going to be able to exchange music directly with them. Your TV is going to come in over IPv6. Your phone is going to be over IPv6. It's basically going to touch everything. So this is covered in the book. There's also some very technical stuff in there. There's even a complete chapter on how to build a testbed network using open source software, old discarded PCs, and free tunnel service. For next to nothing, you can set up a complete IPv6 testbed network and have it working. And all you need is one IPv4 address to make that happen. And the cost is very, very low. It's good for universities and so on. A lot of them are doing this all over the world. There's been tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of copies of this book downloaded all over the world. And I get email from the oddest places from somebody who's downloaded, one from Iraq, believe it or not. He even bought one of our products after he contacted us. But basically, a lot of people are building the testbed network in there and getting their hands dirty and actually learning how IPv6 works using that book. So this is why I released it free. It's very important for people all over the world to learn this stuff. And so rather than publish it through a conventional publisher, I released it free, and it's spreading. It's gone viral. It's all over the place now.
Okay, so if you want, for people like SAR who would like to download the book, all you have to do is to go to or to visit the website secondinternet.org, and you'll be able to download the book, The Second Internet. So
and
if you have any more, yes,
it's like open source but for a book.
Yes. So if you have any more questions, please type them directly in our questions box, and we will ask them. And okay, I think we have received the last set of questions, and maybe Lawrence, before I proceed in giving people an overview about the Startup 100 project, it's going to be a very short brief. Do you have any last words for them on becoming a serial entrepreneur that you would like to add?
Yes, basically, just because you're from the Philippines, don't think that there's any reason you can't compete on the world class. We are living proof that Filipinos can create world-class products and outcompete even Silicon Valley companies. We won that contract down in Malaysia over 2 Silicon Valley companies and 1 large company from Canada. And it wasn't even close. We won hands down. This was technology created in the Philippines by Filipinos. So there's no shortage of bright people and ability here. What there's a shortage of is knowledge and experience working in a company like this. So, you know, let me encourage you. Start this up. This is one of the things that's going to help the Philippines climb up out of poverty. Capitalism has removed more poverty than anything else. And entrepreneurs are the ones who do that. They're the ones who create wealth. So become part of that group. Start creating wealth. Don't depend on other people to do it. Jump in there and do it yourself. There's plenty of information out there. This group, the 100 Startups, is a fabulous idea. I really compliment you guys for coming up with that. Be glad to help and encourage people. This is how you can actually climb up out of the situation you're in now. Become a successful entrepreneur and start creating wealth, not only for yourself, but for lots of other people. That's what capitalism's all about.
Okay, thank you very much, Lawrence, and have a great evening. And of course, feel free to stick around, and this will be just a very quick presentation about the Digital Filipino Startup 100 project. So just to give an overview to everyone, the Digital Filipino Club is actually an e-commerce community that started in 2003. So most of our members are primarily e-commerce entrepreneurs and service providers, or people who are doing something in the area of e-commerce, or it's or sometimes on the front end, and other folks doing work on the back end, and some are service providers in this space. So we've been here for quite some time now. However, recently we've noticed that majority of the members who've been entering the club are usually the not so traditional e-commerce players, meaning these are your retailers or other vertical players or vertical sector players, like those in the real estate or those in the publishing or those in the advertising and marketing space. Although we are open to everyone in so far as Digital Filipino is concerned, as far as they can process their membership fees. However, we are also alarmed with the reality that there are not too many startups anymore that are doing how do you call it, creative ideas, or building their own brand, or offering a service, and really take a gamble as a startup and do something creative out there. And which is why we thought of doing a project like this, so that we would like to help out 100 entrepreneurs for 2012. At first, when we thought of the idea, we noticed that there are some initiatives during the early .com days, like the Hatch Camp Asia. There was also another group then, Idea Farm, among others. But I guess at that time, because I was also asked if I want to apply then, they were quite intimidating, I guess, and not too many people are so open to the idea of working with capitalists or venture capitalists or investors. And we noticed that a lot of the .coms, or the aspiring ones, are not really ready to get investors, but are just needing help to get their projects off the ground. So that is why we thought of doing this project that will have 2 components. The first component will be the free online mentorship through expert talks and interactive consultation session through webinars. So we just had our first webinar session, and we will be encouraging more entrepreneurs like Lawrence to share their experience. And but by the way, Lawrence will also be back soon, around next year. Maybe we can do another one with Lawrence around January to do something on IPv6 application opportunities for aspiring startups. So for those of you who would really like to get into that space. And however, upon posting the materials tomorrow and the video, we will also be linking to a form, so that for those of you who already have a prototype, like maybe you already have a project idea, you already have something working or something under development that you can show already, and maybe just needing an extra help so that you can already launch, then you will be able to fill up that form. And then what will happen there is that once that online form is filled up, I will receive it. Usually you will have a webinar session like this, like the one that we're having right now, where you'll be able to present your idea. The reason why we're doing it online through webinars so that we can make this open to anyone in the country and not limit ourselves by physical contact or by having a face-to-face meetup right away. And the moment, after evaluation, the moment I see that your presentation is in order or more or less there are some requirements that you think you can fulfill within a 2 to 4 weeks time frame, then I will be scheduling you for a presentation with all of the mentors in the program. So far, we have 3 mentors who have signed up. All of them are Digital Filipino Club members, particularly InfoWeapons Lawrence Hughes. We also have Sulit.com.ph RJ David, and FutureGen International or Bitstop Network Services Wilson Chua, who are all entrepreneurs who have built their business from the ground up and now interested in helping out startup as a mentor / investor. They may not be your typical VC who will invest big money, big money, but definitely they will be there in guiding you just in case they will be interested in your business. Basically, our idea here is not to turn well, as much as possible, we don't want to turn anyone away, and as much as possible, we would like to help any startup who at least have done initial work already in their project beyond the concept paper and have taken steps to already develop something, and we would like to help them make their ideas or make their projects a reality. So I hope that for those of you who will be interested, I hope you can visit this page. We also have a LinkedIn group called the Digital Filipino Club Startup 100 Project. And I'll be inviting all of you who joined us in this webinar session tonight to join this group. I will be adding your email addresses here, and I will also send you the link so that you will be automatically approved. This is where you'll be able to post questions, and our mentors / angel investors who volunteer to help out in this project will interact with you so that we can help you further fine-tune your ideas. And of course, a lot of our Digital Filipino Club members are also in this group who can also contribute to the discussion. Although what you may notice at this point, a lot of the materials that are posted here are shared by me. We haven't really done that much discussion in the past, but we hope that this time we will be able to do so, especially as we reach out to entrepreneurs. Somebody asked, when is our next webinar? Actually, I'm just scheduling it. We will likely have RJ David or Wilson Chua to be our next resource person for the webinar. And I'm just finalizing the schedule with them. But what will happen most likely is that I will upload the video first and the presentation material and ask the 2 guys to review it so that they'll be able to have a glimpse of what happened on the first one and the questions asked so that they can also prepare on their end once they commit for the webinar. And then somebody asked a question, are you interested to submit an unsolicited proposal for the Philippine government's national broadband network running on IPv6? I think, Lawrence, are you still there? I think this is for you. Let me unmute your microphone. Lawrence, I'm going to repeat the question. Are you interested to submit an unsolicited proposal for the Philippine government's national broadband network running on IPv6?
That's not really in our area. It sounds like it is, but basically we'd be glad to sell equipment to somebody that wants to do that and do training and things like that. But our hands are pretty much full right at the moment with replacing DNS systems for large telcos around the region. Also, to be quite frank, for the most part, the contracts in the surrounding regions are more lucrative than the ones here in the Philippines. There are exceptions to that, but for the most part, we're concentrating on creating technology here and exporting it to the surrounding regions.
Okay, thank you, Lawrence. I also have a question from Joseph. Is the Digital Startup 100 program an incubator? Actually, we are discussing that on how are we going to really define ourselves. Partly we're more or less like a virtual incubator slash accelerator. That's what we would like to become. However, it's quite early to say because we're not really that sure on how the market will respond to the idea, because we noticed that the startup camps have been very famous. However, I kind of feel that the startup camps, you only get the cream of the crop, like maybe the top 6 or the top 10, and everybody else gets turned down. And because of that, some of them might get disheartened and not proceed in pursuing their startup dreams. So that is why in this case we decided to make it an open calendar. And I will, as much as possible, work with as many entrepreneurs as I can to help them out with their projects. Definitely, for those that we will help out, we will set up some form of an agreement with them on what can be the deal so that we can formalize the relationship. And our target is hopefully we'll be able to help at least 10 entrepreneurs a month, and we will start doing that this January. I think we don't have any more questions. Which incubator model in the US is the template? Actually, we don't have an incubator model at the moment. When I was in the US last August and September, I was able to visit Alpha Lab, BizTech, and Innovate Washington. And I noticed that a lot of them do fund projects on a, how we call it, on a per batch basis, meaning a lot of people apply and only the best gets picked and gets supported. So in this case, we don't want to embrace that. At least for this project, I'm not keen in only working with the cream of the crop, since we would like to make this developmental. So definitely we would like to work with as many entrepreneurs as we can and help them get started with their, help them get off the ground with their startup venture. That's our idea. So it's a little bit different, and we hope that being a little bit different and being more open will allow us to reach out to as many aspiring technopreneurs as possible. And the startup project is for web apps, or can we also help service provider? Lawrence, what do you think of that? I remember we have a discussion. Do we look for those with applications or those who are rendering it as a service? And we talked about this earlier, and also the issue of scalability.
Yeah, basically it depends on exactly what you mean by service. If it's an online service that somebody can interact with without consuming any of your time per person, that's one thing. If you're talking about providing consulting services or anything where basically your time or the time of people that you hire is consumed, basically that will only ever have a linear growth path. You can't really do scaling with that. On the other hand, if you're a product-based company, there's a long startup period where you're not going to get any money, but once you do start making money, the growth rates are extremely rapid, and they will very rapidly outstrip any service-based organization. So if you can come up with some kind of product that you can cost you $100,000 to make the first one, but only 25 cents to make the second one if it's just a digital copy. Basically, that is a model that scales very well. Anything where you're basically selling your time or the time of consultants that work for you, it's going to be hard to scale that. You're going to be limited by how many bright people you can hire and maintain on staff and keep other people from pilfering and so on. So if at all possible, create products whether they're actual physical products or online products, rather than services that are going to take a lot of your time to fulfill the orders.
Okay. And then Rowan also asked the question, do this program have some personal meetup at some point, something like a get-together? Rowan, when I was looking at the program, when I was trying to come up with the formula, I want to avoid the situation where there are a lot of startups who gather together and pitch and not clearly have an idea on who are the people or that are in the audience that they are pitching to. And sometimes even face the risk that their ideas will be taken away by others or get shared to others or get pirated by others. So what we intend to do is that the moment we start receiving applications, let's say one of you applied, you gave a presentation, you showed a prototype of what you have done, and then we will review, and then you will also identify areas where you are having a hard time to develop further or you need some assistance in that area. That is the time that a possible meetup can be arranged. It can be on a face-to-face or it can be online, and usually this will be done in the form of a training. So in Digital Filipino, most of our club members can, part of the benefits of the club members, they can attend the training for free. However, for aspiring startups who will be joining the program and whose need includes being trained and they are not club members, we will try to come up with a special arrangement with them so that they will be able to participate in the training for free, so that they will be able to prepare themselves for a bigger presentation with our mentors/investors. And at that time, for those who have not submitted a proposal yet but would like to participate, then those people interested can pay a fee, and of course for the club members, they can attend for free. So that is our intention. So most of our meetups will be more oriented towards training, because our intention there is to prepare whoever submitted an application to us to complete their project so that they'll be ready to present with the mentors/investors when the time comes. And if a face-to-face meetup is not possible, like perhaps the startup entrepreneur is based outside of Metro Manila, then we will do it through online training. And then, how much equity do investors usually ask for? Lawrence, what's your take on that?
My book on angel capital, not the one I haven't written one that I have goes into that quite a bit, and it varies enormously depending on just how good the idea is, how far along the team is, and so on, and how much of the angel investor's time and resources might wind up getting consumed. But it's not unusual for an angel entrepreneur to get anywhere from 15 to 30% or whatever for their investment. But it depends, it depends on a case-by-case basis. That's one of the hardest things to pin down in that kind of startup or that kind of investment. Just valuing the company, you can't value an idea. An idea has no value on its own. It has to be the idea within a context of a working company that hopefully has at least a prototype. That you can actually assign a value to. And you can get valuations of companies, but that's a fairly expensive thing. We just had one done. It cost about $7,500 US to have a valuation done of just basically our intellectual property. It was a very nice number when it came back, but that's an expensive way to get somebody to estimate what your stuff is worth. So valuation is one of the hardest things to do. You need to work with your angel investors and negotiate. Basically, they're kind of making guesses in the dark too, and so it's kind of an iterative process. You'll wind up with some number that both of you are comfortable with, and inevitably, as additional investors come on down the road, especially VCs, the original angel investor will get diluted more and more. So if they started out with 15%, by the time it actually goes public or is acquired or whatever, they may only own 2 or 3%. If they start out too small, by the time they're diluted, they'll get nothing.
Okay, thank you very much, Lawrence. Joseph, when we were looking at the international VCs, like Alpha Lab usually gets, not VC, I'm sorry, when we're looking at incubators and accelerators, we noticed that some of them get no more than 5%. I noticed that those who gave cash and services usually don't go beyond 5%. And I guess the reason for that is to help the company become attractive to other investors. Because if there's already a major shareholder, they say that the new investors may be quite reluctant to invest in further, especially if there are other players who have a majority stake in the organization. So initially, we're looking at least on my end, I'm looking at a figure of no more than 5%. And it can be a combination of both cash and on services. So you're playing around 1 to 5. However, for the mentor/investors, it can be a different story altogether. And again, it will depend on the appreciation of the company, on its prospect or potential, and especially when it gets to their level. So at least there are different schools of thoughts there. So I guess we will see, and we will approach it on a case-by-case basis, because what will usually happen there is that the mentor/investors will review the proposals that we'll be receiving, and then we will have an internal discussion on how do we want to go about it. Although each one can proceed in terms of dealing with the startup applicant directly, we will not necessarily come in as a group. Lawrence, you want to add something there?
Yes. Basically, the division of stock it follows the golden rule. The one with the gold makes the rules. Essentially, the proportion of stock depends very heavily on who puts how much money in. One rule that I can tell you is that Cipher Trust, when we invested, or when we started it, basically the 4 principals got 5% each for their sweat equity, what they brought to the company in terms of expertise and knowledge and so on. Everything else was determined by how much money was put in. And so because I put in a substantial amount of money, I wound up with a fairly big chunk. But the sweat equity, a lot of people think they should get like, like if there were 3 founders, they should each get 30%, and then maybe the investor gets 10%. That's not the way it works. The percentage is determined very much by where the money comes from. So if you can put in the money yourself or require less money, that's a good thing, because otherwise you're going to wind up with a very small percentage of your company. Again, the venture capital tables in the high-tech startup book are very informative on that. You can see how companies like 3Com and Apple and so on started, and what percentage the founders wound up with, at different points along the road.
Okay, so I guess that answers the question on the equity portion, and I guess it's very subjective, and it's really hard to generalize until you get to see what the startup has done and how much work have they invested already. So I guess the more complete a product is, of course, definitely the owners will have, I guess, a higher stake or a bigger stake of a bigger share of the pie, rather than minimal work is done, at the time of the application. All right, so thank you very much for joining us tonight in this first Digital Filipino Startup 100 project briefing, and thank you very much, Lawrence Hughes of InfoWeapons. I know we cannot clap our hands, so I guess at the least can we all raise our hands? Press the raise your hand button just to show your appreciation to our speaker for tonight for the great knowledge that he shared. Thank you very much, Lawrence, and thank you very much, everyone. And of course, thank you very much to our our technology facilitator, Jam Mayer for Mayer Virtual Consulting, for helping us out in this webinar tonight. Thank you, Jam.
Thank you also. Always a pleasure, Janet, and thank you, Lawrence, as well.
My pleasure.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. So in order to leave this webinar, just click on File, Exit, Leave Webinar. Good night, everyone.